I just saw this and I checked if it was true, and it is. If you search the USS Liberty on TikTok, you get a notification about the Holocaust. And it's not just a notification, it's a whole fucking infographic with suggestions of dozens of Zionist accounts to follow. When you search for Gaza, you get this like notification saying like events are rapidly changing, you might not want to believe everything that you see here. But I searched up like all major conflicts and wars that are happening right now, and this doesn't come up, even though they're just as rapidly changing, but it only comes up for Gaza. But this Remember the Holocaust notification didn't come up when I was searching for things that were actually connected to the Holocaust. Like 1930s Germany, I looked up certain names, I looked up certain places, I looked up certain events, and the notification didn't come up, except for just the term Holocaust and USS Liberty. But I can't explain to you how not connected to the Holocaust the USS Liberty incident is. Called an incident and not an attack for some reason, even though what happened was Israel attacked an American spy boat during the 6 Days War in 1967, 22 years after the Holocaust ended. The attack killed like 34 people and injured like 170 or more, and Israel claimed that it was a mistake, that they misidentified, even though everybody who survived and was there was like, that's impossible. They were on international water and they were clearly identified as American. Also, they'd been having communication with Israel for like the days leading up to the attack. In fact, just before the attack, Israeli planes had flown so close to the ship as they passed that they were waving to each other. But both Israel and America investigated the attack and said it was an incident and it was just an accident, even though like everyone who was there was like, no, it wasn't. And Israel did go on to pay like millions of pounds in reparation and damages to America, but they also were just giving America back money that America had already given them, so... And I'm not being like a conspiracist, but it's just like, it's so hard to feel like your opinion, your point of view, your own thoughts about something are not always being manipulated and maneuvered. When you go to look up something that Israel have done wrong and you're like, oh, that's interesting, I want to see. And you're just reminded of like the Holocaust, an event that took place in a different decade in a different fucking continent. Like, it's not relevant. There is just this sense of some kind of like external influence that is constantly on the peripheral when you are trying to learn about Israel, or maybe trying to form an opinion or thoughts around them as a state or their actions. Just this kind of like peripheral interference that's always trying to like manipulate it in some way, which for me like doesn't scream innocence. I don't know any other subject where that happens.
They know that they've lost control of the media. They know they've lost control of the narrative, and they know that they've lost control of the youth in America, and that at some point, you know, those 70-year-olds watching cable news are going to age out and die, and the people in charge are going to be this generation that has a totally different view of Israel than previous generations. They know that, but then the question becomes like, what do you do with that information? And so I think that there is a part of Netanyahu and the Israeli war cabinet and the Israeli government who are looking at this and going, all right, so we got like 10 more years of this relationship. You know, we got like 10 more years of where the U.S. has our back and we can do whatever we want. And so you could see where the conclusion from that might be, we got to go for it now. Like, if you really do have this greater Israel project, well, right now, under the Trump administration, this is your moment. He has already vowed he's going to do whatever to support Israel. He is totally on your side. You have this administration. There's every last member of this administration supports Israel. So now's the time. Annex Gaza and the West Bank. And, you know, parts of Syria, too, and whatever else they want to do. So I think they might be going for it, you know? And I don't know. We'll see. I mean,
when they started bombing Iran, that's what I thought. I was like, oh, boy.
Well, they tried to suck Trump into a regime change war there, you know, and it didn't work. But the whole thing, you know, the whole 12-day war, first of all, this thing is not over. We're kind of like the fundamentals of the conflict are all still there. And in fact, I think there was just a few days ago, like there were a couple like Israeli spokesmen who were already signaling like, we may have to go, you know, see about this again. Netanyahu himself said when him and Trump met in the White House, and it was a really fascinating moment, which, you know, I'm not trying to make too much of, but it was pretty hilarious in a way, like a little microcosm, where they asked Donald Trump at one point, they go, so is that it with Iran? Like, is the war continuing or is it over? And he goes, well, you know, I don't really want to see it continue, but maybe that's a better question for Bibi. And you're like, what? Wait, what? Oh, I'm sorry. You're like, well, my boss is right here, so you might as well ask him.
Out of all,
Who would you say America's best ally is? Israel. What would you say if I told you 57 years ago, Israel made war on the United States? USS Liberty, spy ship, sent to the Eastern Mediterranean in 1967, attacked by Israel with the intention of sinking the ship, killing every man aboard it, and blaming it on the Egyptians and getting us involved with the Middle East war. Our Congress has never done anything about it, never had an investigation into it, which is required by the U.S. Constitution. Kind of seems like when we get politicians elected, they do what they want to instead of paying attention to the Constitution. I would urge you to look up the USS Liberty on the internet and take a look. Because our Congress did nothing 57 years ago. Israel realized they could do whatever they wanted to and get away with it. And as a result, they seem to be intent on committing genocide against the Palestinian people. 40,000 dead, mostly women and children, and the United States is supplying the bombs to kill them. Not a very pretty picture of America's history, but it's something you need to know. And thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Most Americans have never heard this story. Why? On June 8, 1967, the USS Liberty was off the coast of Egypt. Calm seas, clear skies, the American flag waving in the air. Then, without warning, a plane flashed overhead, and America's closest ally opened fire. Planes and boats bombarded the Liberty for over an hour. Torpedoes, fires, even the lifeboats were shot to shreds. 34 Americans killed, 171 wounded. That's 2/3 of the crew. The deadliest attack on a U.S. ship since World War II. And it was done by Israel. Survivors say they were pushed to stay quiet, despite what to them felt like overwhelming evidence that something else was going on. A cover-up, they feared, was happening the second the first weapon was shot. The official story? A tragic accident. But behind closed doors, even high-ranking U.S. officials didn't buy it. A top advisor for President Lyndon B. Johnson said it was inconceivable that it all was just an accident. But what did the U.S. do publicly? Not much. There's been one main investigation focused on the attack in the decades since. It lasted just over a week, ending 10 days after the attack. And even that investigation was allegedly doomed from the start. Ward Boston, a Navy attorney who helped lead that very investigation, said it was cut short, despite the fact that they would have needed months to conduct it properly. He said they actually believed the attack was deliberate, but they were directed to rewrite parts of their findings and to not speak of the attack again. 58 years later, survivors still demand answers, while many Americans still have no idea this even happened. But with each year that passes, more survivors pass away. The calls get quieter and quieter. If any other country had done this, would the US have just moved on? Instead, the Israeli government has continued to kill Americans. Aid workers, journalists, even young people protesting Israel's illegal settlements in Palestine. 34 Americans killed, 171 wounded, and the US has barely touched it since. Why?
Candace Owens starts her show with a letter that, quote-unquote, changed her life. The letter is from a Navy sailor and USS Liberty survivor, Phil Tourney. Phil describes in depth how Israel's deliberate 1967 attack on a US naval ship that lasted for over 1.5 hours. This was not a case of mistaken identity in any way, he says. The US largely ignored the incident. President Johnson is even quoted saying, "I don't care about a few dead sailors. I'm not embarrassing our ally, Israel." The Liberty sailors' main sin was that they survived. They were forbidden to talk about it as per their military orders. As the years went by, some soldiers started to finally speak out, but not too much fanfare. They have been ignored by the AIPAC-controlled congressmen and the Zionist-controlled media. Tons of respect to those who are speaking out. This history deserves to be heard, and it may shake your world, and it may shake your worldview of our greatest ally. You can catch the full episode on Candace Owens' YouTube channel.
All right, you guys, I'll get right into this. A couple of weeks ago, I received a letter that changed my life, certainly changed the course of my life in politics. And I am going to read you that letter now and let you know that the author of it is sitting across from me. It reads, "My name is Philip Turney. I am 77 years old today. On June 8th, 1967, I was just 20 years old when the gallant crew of the USS Liberty was savagely attacked. Our American flag was proudly flying on our ship in the Mediterranean Sea that day. The designation AGTR-5 was clearly painted on the bow, port, and starboard sides. USS Liberty was written in English on her stern. When we arrived on June 7th, we were overflown by Israeli reconnaissance aircraft, and the same activity was repeated on the morning of June 8th. We were positively identified as American and friendly by the IDF. We had requested a destroyer escort long before we entered the Mediterranean, but we were denied twice. Our captain assured us that we were clearly marked as American and we therefore had nothing to fear. We were alone, 12.5 miles off the coast of the Sinai Peninsula, always in international waters. The Israeli reconnaissance aircraft were clearly marked with the Star of David. We therefore felt secure, seeing a flying boxcar and other smaller recon propeller aircraft taking good care of us. The attack began at 2 o'clock on a beautiful, bright, sunny day by French-made Mirage and Mistral jets painted black with no markings. We had no clue who was attacking us, but assumed it was an Arab state. During the first pass-by, the jets took out all but one of our transmitting antennas, as well as every watertight door above the waterline. The air attack lasted about 25 minutes, killing and maiming our firefighters and any sailor who moved. Our radio man took one antenna offline, so it wasn't transmitting and wasn't hit. He ran a long wire to it, and the SOS went out to the 6th Fleet. It was even picked up as far away as Vietnam. Rockstar, Rockstar, under attack by an unknown jet aircraft. Help us, help us. Captain Tully, skipper of the USS Saratoga, sent jets to come to our aid. Before the jets hit the horizon, they were recalled by Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara. Captain Engen of the USS America and Tully relaunched more aircraft to aid us. They were also recalled, this time by Lyndon Baines Johnson himself. He said, quote, "I don't care about a few dead sailors. I will not embarrass my ally, Israel. Return to base immediately," end quote. How did he know who was attacking us if we did not? We were set up by our own government to let a foreign government have their way with us. The IDF even dropped napalm on the bridge of our ship. How low they would go, we would soon find out. 3 motor torpedo boats headed our way, and 1 torpedo hit our starboard side. We saw the Star of David on the boats. They were there to sink us. The attack continued for another hour and a half. Attacking jet aircraft destroyed all but 3 of our life rafts, which we had put overboard. We were going to place our most seriously wounded in them so that they would have a chance at life. But the IDF would have none of that. They shot 2 of them out of the water and took 1 aboard their boats as a trophy of the kill. They continued shooting and killing my mates. They left and we thought that it was over, but it wasn't. IDF helicopters were sent with troops armed and ready to board our ship and finish us off. Then they just left. I guess the gig was up when the mighty IDF could not sink our defenseless ship. When it was all done, there were over 821 rocket and cannon holes and over 5,000 armor-piercing bullets riddling the ship. Napalm was burning us up, and a 40 by 40-foot torpedo hole was in her side, causing the ship to list badly to our starboard side. We then waited 17 hours for help. I guess they hoped that we would sink that night. Help was only 40 minutes away from us, but they left us out alone to die. When the USS America and the USS Davis arrived to help us, they took our wounded to care for them. Their wounds were so horrific words cannot explain. Admiral Kidd boarded our ship a few days later, and the cover-up immediately began. We were ordered to never speak of the attack to anyone, not even with one another. Penalties would be fines, imprisonment, or worse, and we all knew that worse meant death. We have been treated like garbage for the last 57 years. Congress has been bought and paid for with the exception, over the years, of a few brave lawmakers. Their names are Representatives Pete McCloskey, Paul Findley, and Jim Traficant. As the courageous Rep. Thomas Massey has noted, all Republican members of Congress except for him have APAC handlers. We can assume this is also true of nearly all Democrats. We are the most decorated ship in naval history for a single engagement. I believe God saved us that day to allow us to communicate the truth of this attack to leaders like you. We give all power to Jesus Christ. We are just his servants that horrible day and now. The USS Liberty survivors are the biggest whistleblowers this country has ever seen. We have been smeared as anti-Semitic, Jew haters, and Nazis. Our only sin is that we survived. We didn't kill anyone. Israel did all the murdering that day, and the U.S. government did all the covering up. I'm asking you to help us save America by telling others the facts about the slaughter of my mates. We are begging you to support us. Respectfully, Phil Turney, the president of the USS Liberty Veterans Association. Take me through what happened on June 8th.
The attack began.
What's the first thing you remember?
All hands get to your general quarter stations. We're under attack. We're under attack. And I got to my GQ station, which is in the front part of the ship. And those two men that I just left there, not a minute it took me to get back up there. They were dead. They're blown to bits. Anything that moved aboard that ship, they were shot at. They took out all of our antennas within 3 seconds. Our 450 caliber machine guns were gone. Every watertight door was hit, and this went on for 25 minutes, dropping napalm on us. 25 minutes of that, you can't imagine. Every second was like an hour. There was nowhere to hide, nowhere to run, and you got people severely blown up, wounded badly. And then there was a lull. We saw the torpedo boats coming. We thought, the Star of David, oh, good. Because these were unmarked jet aircraft. We didn't know who was attacking us. We thought it was the Arabs. And then we saw the torpedo boats, and the Star of David thought, oh man, here's our best friends who are going to come help us. No, they come to sink us. They fired 5 torpedoes at us. LBJ gets on the phone, and his exact words were, I don't give a GD if all those sailors die. I'm not going to embarrass my ally Israel, like I said in the letter. Now, how did he know that if we didn't know it? Who was attacking us?
So they then have the President of the United States. So this guy's trying to do the right thing, Captain Tully. He's like, we're going to help them. He gets called back by the Secretary of Defense. He's thinking, I'm going to go over his head because this is crazy. And now the President of the United States is saying, I don't care. I don't give a GD if they die. I am not going to embarrass our friend and ally Israel. So he knew.
We were set up by our own government to die.
You and Fox 5 News is full of shit. Do you think?
This veteran was standing in solidarity with Palestine, but did you notice his hat? It says USS Liberty, so let's talk about that U.S. naval ship and its tragic history with Israel. On June 8, 1967, the Israeli armed forces attacked the USS Liberty and killed 34 American sailors. The ship was in international waters, which means Israel committed yet another war crime. The Secretary of State at the time refused to believe it was an accident and blamed Israel. To this day, Israel was never held accountable for murdering 34 Americans.
Fox News is Zionist news. Corporate Zionist news. You're full of shit. That's what you are.
I just want to ask you,
do
you care about the babies that were beheaded?
No, they were never beheaded. That was a made-up story. It's not true. It's bullshit. Show me the fucking pictures now. Show me the pictures. You're a lying full of shit. You're full of shit. You and Fox 5 News is full of shit.
Do you think that what happened this weekend is okay?
It is okay because it's international law. Resolution 242 says when an occupying force has the right to come in. When they occupy your country, you have a right, any means necessary, to defend your country with violence.
And with Fox News.
June the 8th, 1967, the height of the Six-Day War. The USS Liberty, an American spy ship, had just been attacked by Israeli jets and torpedo boats while in international waters off Egypt. Badly damaged, 2/3 of its crew were dead or wounded. As soon as the news reached Washington, the attack on the Liberty instantly triggered a domestic political crisis. According to documents released under the Freedom of Information Act, one solution suggested in American government circles was to sink the Liberty so journalists could not photograph it and inflame public opinion against the Israelis. The NSA rejected this idea with an impolite comment. Handling the media became the top priority.
I was taken to my home in White Oak, Maryland. My name is Patricia Blue Rashakas, and my husband was killed on the Liberty. And by the time I got there, there were any number of people from the National Security Agency there. They were there to make sure that I didn't speak to anyone from the press, and I didn't. They stayed night and day.
Back in the Mediterranean, the Liberty was now listing at 10 degrees, a massive hole in the hull above and below the waterline.
May 1967, with tensions rising across the Middle East, the USS Liberty was sent to the Mediterranean to intercept Egyptian radio transmissions. By June 8th, Israel was on day 4 of the Six-Day War, and the crew aboard the Liberty found themselves unwittingly in the midst of a war. Israeli forces first spotted the Liberty at around 5:55 a.m., but they weren't sure whom the boat belonged to, so they left it alone. According to the Israeli investigation, the vessel was marked as a neutral ship, and after a few hours without updates on its movements, the ship was cleared from the board and was forgotten by the shift that came to replace them in the morning. At 11:24 a.m., Israeli forces reported a huge explosion at El Arish, a town on the coast of the Sinai Peninsula that was recently captured by Israel. When they looked to the water for the attackers, they spotted the Liberty. But according to Israeli reports, the Liberty didn't have any markings or flags raised. In hindsight, it's obvious the Liberty wasn't attacking anyone. It had just a few .50 caliber machine guns, basically pea shooters for a ship. But the Israelis didn't know that at the time. They saw a foreign boat and grew suspicious. At 1:48 p.m., Israel sent 2 waves of fighter jets to attack the Liberty. The first jets reached the ship at 1:58 and began firing. Immediately, the Liberty's crew tried to radio for help. They couldn't reach anyone for 11 minutes. Some survivors believe Israel jammed their signals, but Israel disputes this. A second wave of fighter jets also attacked the ship, this time with napalm. The pilots noticed the ship wasn't firing back and stopped attacking by 2:11 p.m. They also saw Latin script on the side of the boat, but the pilots didn't get a good look at the markings and thought it said CTR-5. In fact, the C was a G, which is a designation of American spy ships. This is a good point to stop and look at one of the biggest disagreements between the survivors and official government reports: whether or not Israel really couldn't tell that the Liberty was American. Everyone agrees that there were multiple American flags on the Liberty. The first wave of the attack knocked down the stern flagstaff, but according to the Americans, they raised another bigger flag after that. What's also agreed upon is that the Liberty was marked with Latin script, not Arabic, but markings can be easily painted on as a decoy. Keep in mind, the jets were also flying 3,000 feet in the air and as fast as 800 miles per hour, so it's reasonable that they had difficulty spotting the American markings. After the fighter jets left, Israel's torpedo boats entered the fray. According to one official Israeli report, the Israelis asked the foreign ship to identify itself. Suffering some equipment failure, the Liberty responded with a signal, AA, which meant identify yourself first. This made them suspicious. Some Israeli commanders recognized this response from a hostile Egyptian destroyer from years earlier. On top of that, some crew aboard the Liberty, unaware of their captain's do not shoot order, decided to start firing at Israeli torpedo boats in self-defense at around 2:30. The shots didn't do much, but the Israeli boats interpreted this as an attack. Identifying the Liberty as an Egyptian ship, the El Qasir, the captain of the Israeli boats responded with 5 torpedoes. Only one struck the Liberty, but it caused significant damage. At 2:47, less than an hour after the attack began, Israeli officers ordered their boats to stop firing. They started questioning the ship's nationality again, and eventually learned that they had attacked Americans. They spotted lifeboats with American markings, correctly identified the GTR-5 marking, and finally saw the American flag. Israel then sent helicopters to help rescue the survivors, but the captain of the Liberty rejected them and sent them away. By the end of the day, 34 Americans died, and 171 more were wounded. The Israeli government quickly acknowledged the mistake. Over the subsequent years, they paid the survivors, the families of the deceased, and the American government the equivalent of nearly $68 million in today's value. To confirm the facts, Israel commissioned several military reports, and on the American side, a Senate Foreign Relations Committee, investigations by the CIA, and the U.S. Navy Court of Inquiry came to similar conclusions. And yet some survivors believe the American investigations were rushed. They feel that justice has not been properly served and have been calling for a more thorough congressional investigation for decades. Unfortunately, all that skepticism has swung open the door for anti-Semites, who have co-opted the narrative online in order to promote their own agenda. These conspiracy theorists ignore the government reports and capitalize on the disputed facts. In order to promote these messages, they leverage doubt, mistrust in institutions, and classic anti-Semitic tropes, which we'll get into in a minute. When these people disregard the official story of the USS Liberty, they face a problem. They can't agree on what Israel was actually trying to accomplish. Some conspiracy theorists claim that Israel tried to frame Egypt and drag the US into a war against the Arab states. Others disagree. They say the whole incident was orchestrated by Lyndon Johnson to somehow advance his security goals in the Middle East and possibly topple the Egyptian government. Some people even think Israel wanted to spark a third world war.
I mean, the real point here is that Israel can do anything, including murdering 34 American service members in cold blood and attempting to murder every single member of the USS Liberty, so as to justify a policy which would have sucked American sons and daughters into a third world war because Israel does not have the integrity nor the courage or any kind of honor whatsoever to go and attack its enemies itself.
The conspiracy theories surrounding the USS Liberty, with innocent Americans dying at the hands of Jews, fantasies of Israel egging America into global warfare, fit well into pre-existing anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, specifically blood libels and Jewish world domination. The blood libel is a claim that has gone on for hundreds of years, which claims the Jews secretly kill non-Jews to use their blood for nefarious purposes, while the late 19th century book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, popularized the claim that Jews are secretly orchestrating world domination.
Shot the fucking lifeboats, which is a fucking war crime. They shot the ship for an hour and a half. They dropped napalm on the deck. They shot the fucking lifeboats, which is a fucking war crime. They brought in another ship to fucking torpedo the vessel. They brought in attack helicopters. They knew it was a U.S. warship because you fly fucking flags. I was in the military. You have a big fucking flag flying. You've got USS whatever on the fucking hull of the boat. Like, it's on the stern. It's very, very obviously identified U.S. warship. They flew over multiple times to check. They got the order and they attacked. And the only person that got thrown in jail was the person that didn't want to fucking attack. Probably because they realized that it was a fucking U.S. ship. And then afterwards, they took life rafts and they put them on fucking display as trophies. Okay? So don't tell me this was like some accident. That's just horse shit.
I'm alive from the USS Liberty. I served on that ship in 1967 when it was attacked by the Israelis, supposedly by accident, in neutral waters off the Sinai Peninsula. 34 of my crewmen were killed and 171 wounded. It's now 50 years later. I'm still alive, and it's Memorial Day, and I always think about the men who died, and I still see some of the crewmen. We were attacked by Mirage jets. They strafed us and dropped napalm. And there was 4 torpedo boats, Israeli torpedo boats, circling us, and they fired 5 torpedoes total. 1 hit. We had a hole in the side of the ship, 50 feet by 30 feet roughly. We had, for weapons on our ship, 50 caliber machine guns. 2 forward and one 2 midship. All the men in those gun mounts were killed, and the torpedo hit in the communication spaces, and many men died wounded from there, supposedly by an accident. I don't believe it was an accident. We intercepted a lot of messages that Israel had sent, and some that were highly classified at the time, and were sent further to our government, who in turn acted or didn't act on what we said. And I know the Israelis, this is my opinion, planned the attack on us, and they know it too, and I believe our government knows it too. So if anybody wants to do anything about it, you know right where I live, and if not, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
They can't speak, but we can speak for them, and we've been doing that forever, trying to get the truth out. But our government wants it sealed to stay sealed, and so does Israel. Now, again, it's not against the Jews, it's not against Americans. They just got fed lies, and we're here to say, hey, we're eyewitnesses. Are you going to believe the Israeli version, the Board of Inquiry version, which is a total BS? Or are you going to believe eyewitnesses like us? Now, I think the American public is smart enough, especially with what's going on in the world now, to see that how powerful a government can be if they want to silence you.
It's gotten so bad that the U.S. Navy curator and U.S. Navy historian wrote the official government version of the attack, and he based it entirely on the Israeli version.
Wow. Well, more people are going to hear this version than that version. How you like that?
God bless you.
Amen.
My name is Wayne Stiles. I was the co-pilot on the first rescue helicopter to reach the USS Liberty on the morning of June 9th. We had flown from the USS America. When we arrived at the ship that morning, there was no place to land. The ship was so destroyed that we had to hover at 25 feet and bring wounded up on the hoist cable. So we sent a crewman down to be on deck and to make sure they got into the apparatus correctly, and then we brought them up to the helicopter and they evacuated them back to the USS America. While I was hovering, I was watching the instruments for the pilot, and also watching, because the hoist was right outside of my window on the helicopter, and in the forward gun tub where there was a machine gun's emplacement, blood was sloshing back and forth in the bottom of that. And I later learned from our crewman back at the America that he had been told that 2 or 3, I don't remember which, 2 or 3 crews had been machine gunned to death trying to man that 50 caliber and fight back against the Israelis. So it was quite a shocking day for me, being a little farm boy from western Connecticut. The bridge of the ship was completely gone. There was just holes everywhere, all over the ship. So it was quite a shock. And we completed our mission. And there was another helicopter squadron aboard, they had larger helicopters than us. They were the anti-submarine warfare helicopters, and they figured they could carry a lot more people per trip than we did. So they kind of took over the evacuation in the afternoon. So that's my story.
My name is Commander David Lewis. I was a research officer on board the USS Liberty at the time of the Israeli attack. As research officer, I had several other supply types, radioman and electronics technician. My total complement was 195 out of the crew of 295. The other 100 people on board the ship were the ship drivers who did a superb job. Unfortunately, there were so few of them, I volunteered my officers to stand deck watch with them. We learned how to control the ship as well. During the attack, I was blessed with a temporary bulkhead that wrapped itself around me and covered me with a 30-year supply of burnt Navy paint. But other than losing a couple eardrums, I was blessed. Virtually everybody within 20, 25 feet of me was killed instantly. After I was brought up on deck, the next day the helicopters came to carry us to America. I was wrapped from head to toe, put in a basket, and hauled into the helicopter. And being totally covered, the crewman, the foreman that was taking care of me, didn't know which end was up, and he sat on my face the entire trip. All I could think of was what an ignominious way to die after having survived the torpedo. I was blue when they took me out, but I made it work. After they lanced my eyelids open so I could see, I was ordered to report to Rear Admiral Geist, who was the carrier division commander for the Saratoga and the American. He apparently had pangs of conscience for having had to do what he was ordered to do. And he told me he wanted somebody to know what had really happened, but that he swore me to secrecy for the duration of his life. What he told me was that he launched aircraft to come to our defense, and Robert McNamara recalled it. We were in a nuclear weapons drill at the time, and he thought some idiot in Washington suspected that he had launched nuclear weapons to come to the assistance of the Americans. So he reconfigured a flight of aircraft that were incapable of carrying nuclear weapons, and he relaunched it, and again notified via Criticom the White House and McNamara. And McNamara again ordered the aircraft recalled. Admiral Geist challenged the order. He said, Americans are being killed, and we need to go to their assistance. At that point, Lyndon Johnson came on the line. He said, I don't give a damn if the ship sinks and all the Americans are killed. I will not embarrass my allies. Well, that was 3 hours before he's notified who the allies were. Talked about page 1 the first day, page 8 the second day, third day was gone. It was totally covered up. I knew better. I knew it would be the end of my career if I said anything. In the Naval Security Group, everything was secret. So just one additional secret you had to keep, even though it affected you personally. If my troops had known that the President of the United States was attempting to kill all of them, it might have been the first mutiny the Navy ever saw.
Our armed forces are made up of the finest and the most dedicated men in America, ready to make any sacrifice for freedom. Any sacrifice for freedom.
So in his mind, I guess it was okay to sacrifice a few Americans to preserve this fragile relationship we had with Israel.
The USS Liberty was going to be sacrificed for this relationship with Israel.
I think we sacrificed a lot of people for no good reason, and that pretty much grinds on you a little bit, that they all died for a lousy cause, and that's not good.
It's a twofold piece. The government putting the ship there, and then Israel being the one that executed the sinking of it. And you got two powerful controls of the United States that won't let it come up.
Anybody that gets a big enough audience on the Liberty is a danger to the special relationship Israel has with the U.S., and they're going to do anything in their power to prevent it.
Our Presidential Unit Citation, McGonigal's Medal of Honor, says we were attacked by foreign jet aircraft and torpedo boats. It doesn't say we were attacked by Israel.
He's the only Medal of Honor winner in history. The president's never given him his Medal of Honor. He was sent to a Navy yard. It was kept quiet. If you think about that being a part of a cover-up.
For the officers and men of liberty, I accept this Presidential Unit Citation, and I would add my own personal appreciation for their professional devotion to duty.
Our government printed, put it in writing, in the United States Senate book of Congressional Medal of Honor recipients that he received his medal for action in Vietnam. That is one of the worst cover-ups in American history. How low can our government go?
I got a Purple Heart, and then I think that was sent to me.
If it was any other country that attacked us, any other ally even.
And to cover up even further, when they put the tombstone up in Arlington Cemetery, they said, sailors killed in the Eastern Med. The implication was that there was out bar hopping or something that had a car accident.
And it took considerable effort and much time to get the inscription set up properly and say that they were killed aboard the USS Liberty. That's what happened to them. They didn't die from any disease or plague or thing of that kind. They were killed.
On my record, your DD-214, which is like the record everyone has, it doesn't have me on the Liberty, and it doesn't have me getting these ribbons.
They scattered us all. They took them to different duty stations around the world. A lot of them went to Germany, just all over where you couldn't keep in contact with each other, which I wouldn't have anyway, because I was too afraid to.
They sent all of us in different directions. It was done deliberately. That was to ensure that we didn't talk to each other and come up with a plan.
When I first got to Bremerhaven, my first day at work, I was wearing my dungaree jacket. It was cold. It's I got there in July, but it was 55 degrees. It's so far north, I was freezing. And I had my dungaree jacket on with a USS Liberty patch, USS shoulder patch, a Liberty shoulder patch, and other things from the ship. And I was ordered to immediately take those off. I assumed that was because I had heard it's a spit and polish base. I assumed they didn't want any things like that on their uniform. However, I found that it was only the USS Liberty items that you were not permitted to put on your uniform. Shut up, don't talk about it, and that's it.
Questions. He puts his stars back on, and he says, okay, fellas, now I'm an admiral again, and I want each and every one of you to understand something. We are talking about national security here, not your personal feelings, not what you did or did not do. I could really give a shit about any of that. You listen to me once, because this is the only time you're ever going to hear it. You are never to repeat what you just told me to anyone. Not your mother, your father, your wife, anyone, including your shipmates. You are not to discuss this with anyone, and especially not with the media, or you will end up in prison or worse.
But you can't shoot a jet going 600 miles an hour with a 50 caliber machine gun. It doesn't work.
It was just a surreal scene. People who had been standing there earlier joking and laughing were now dead, dying, and with the walking dead and wounded. It was just unreal.
Gasoline barrels stored on the deck of the ship burst into flames. The crew rushed to try to put out the fires.
I was watching the aircraft as they circled around, and when they got to coming back towards the ship, I just holler at him down. They'd fire, circle back around, we'd jump back up and keep fighting fire. The rocket noise is horrendous. When a rocket explodes, you can't escape a rocket. I don't care where you go.
What the crew didn't know was that at 2:03, the Israeli pilots were ordered to use a new, much deadlier weapon.
The biggest problem, I guess, from that was the napalm, which they dropped from the airplane.
The napalm had burned, scorched almost the entire front part of the ship, the bridge area.
The whole top side of the ship had been set on fire, and it was all charred. It was no longer navy gray.
You have to stop the fires, stop the flooding to keep that ship afloat. That's your home. You got nowhere else to go. You can't pack up and go down the road because there is no down the road.
Up above, the Israeli military argued about what should happen next and who should sink the Liberty.
I remember thinking, I was in pretty good shape then. I said, I think I can swim it to the shore. And then I thought sharks. And I thought a lot of things, all quickly, you know.
At 11 minutes past 2, with the Israeli jets running out of ammunition, the pilots were instructed to fly down and confirm the identity of the ship. It was now 12 minutes past 2, and the Israeli control tower knew for certain this was an American ship, the same one its forces had first identified at 5:15 a.m. that morning, and then buzzed again during 7 additional reconnaissance flights throughout the day. The jets then pulled out, but 3 Israeli Navy motor torpedo boats were already on their way.
My job was to try to get probably 20 or 30 wounded sailors out to the main deck and to the life rafts. So I went up and looked out myself before I tried to get anyone up, and that's when I observed a motor torpedo boat, Israeli, plainly marked with the Star of David, machine gunning our life rafts.
The crew of the Liberty were now trapped on board their own ship with nowhere to run and nowhere to hide.
The torpedo boats came in closer and began to machine gun the ship using armor-piercing projectiles.
The armor-piercing, the shells that they were using were leaving holes about that big around in the metal plating. Just peel it out like it was orange peel.
At close range, the armor-piercing rounds ripped through the steel hull of the ship. Nowhere was safe.
This bullet was retrieved from one of the navigational books at the rear portion of the bridge. It had penetrated the skin of the ship, gone through at least one other book, and then stopped in the second book. This is part of an armor-piercing shell. The outer portion or jacket makes the hole that this then goes through. And a bullet like this that hit Seaman Francis Brown and killed him.
He died right on the spot. Just fell to the floor dead. He was just barely 18.
I read somewhere you guys threw out the the rafts to try to get out, and they sunk the rescue rafts or something. Is that accurate?
Absolutely. We had enough life rafts on that ship, Jake, for 294 souls.
Mm-hmm.
We only had 3 of them left.
Oh, wow.
3 life rafts.
And how many did those hold? How many people?
Approximately probably 30 men.
So, yeah, you wouldn't be able to get everyone.
No, but we were going to put our most seriously wounded in them to give them a chance to live. We dropped the life rafts over. There were only 3 of them. They shot 2 out of the water and took 1 aboard their boat as a trophy of their kill, and I hear it's in Haifa as a trophy.
Jesus, they still have it probably.
Yeah, they got it. They're proud of it.
Yeah, I know it's crazy when you start going down this rabbit hole a year ago of all the stuff that our greatest ally does to us, and I can imagine the frustration you must have had for the past 50-something years seeing this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a scar in America, like, George Ball, he said, if Israel can do this to America, they can get by with almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
And Dean Russ said it will remain a scar in American-Israel relations forever.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. That's why I'm bringing you on. I think people need to wake up to realize that Israel is not our ally. This is the rabbit hole I've only gone down the last year, and the more you dig, I mean, we'll mostly stay on the Liberty, but there's so many aspects, which you're obviously aware. We talked a little bit earlier of. They're not. It's not just this. They're screwing us every way possible.
Absolutely.
Israel absolutely is beside itself with joy right now. They are talking about how they're going to blow everything up, how they're going to attack everybody, and guess who's going to get bombed because of it? I'm sick of worshiping Israel. Did you know back in the 1960s they bombed the USS Liberty knowing it was one of our ships because it caught the radio chatter of them killing thousands of Palestinian children during that invasion, and they torpedoed it as they begged for hours on the radio, and LBJ sat there in 63 and let them do it? Israel calls the Palestinians goyim or cattle or dogs or subhuman. They keep them on concentration camps. I got video of them taking Palestinian women's tomatoes they grow and breaking their water containers and stealing. That's why you have this crap. I have been supportive of Israel for many years. When I found out what they do, shooting little Palestinian children in the genitalia and laughing, it's on video. Little 10-year-olds walk around throwing rocks at tanks. A guy sits off a half mile away and blows their testicles off. They need terrorism as a pretext to bring in the modern police state. We have been predicting this nightmarish development for years, and now it is beginning to unfold.